So, a reminder before the lesson begins, make sure you're taking notes and you're listening and watching for the keyword or phrase.
Let's get to it.
Okay, so welcome back. Today we're going to be talking more about inequalities on lesson number 9. So, our aim is how can we write, solve, and graph inequalities? And this is our day 2 of inequalities. So we've already known how to, or we learned how to write and we learned how to solve. Now we're going to graph it. So when you're graphing inequalities, you need to make sure that you're solving it first. So you want to make sure you're solving the inequality before you graph the number line. Or graph on the number line, I should say. Your values on the number line are going to increase and decrease by the same interval. So if you're going up by 1s, you have to go down by 1s. If you're going up by 2s, that's fine. Just make sure they're consistent. And obviously you want to make sure that your answer that you get or the solution that you get from your inequality is on your number line and visible. Usually I suggest to my students that you have 3 values above and 3 values below the actual solution, so this you can show an accurate or full picture on the number line when you graph. Okay, so here you have what each situation looks like, or each solution. What we normally see is x equals a number, or the variable equals a number. So on a number line, that is the only solution. There's only one solution in that situation. One answer, and that would be 2. But if you start dealing with your inequalities, you'll see that you have a range of answers depending on your symbol. You have a less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than equal to. And what is going to be important about graphing is that when you're greater than, you want to have it above the number. When you have less than, you're going to have lower than the number. And sometimes what my students have pointed out, if you look at the arrows, it's actually pointing in the direction that you need the arrow to go and your line to go. So if your greater than is pointing to the right, your arrow is going to be pointing to the right. If your less than symbol is pointing to the left, your arrow is going to point to the left. Now, the big difference between greater than and greater than or equal to is that line below. It also represents that 2 is included in the solution, whereas here it is not. So that's the big difference. So if you say something is greater than 2, it doesn't include 2. It can be 2.5, 2.3, depending on the situation. But here in x is greater than or equal to 2, 2 is included. So how we show that in a graph on a number line is we have either an open circle or a closed circle. And same with less than or equal to. So if we have our symbols, we have greater than. So our arrow direction is going to be to the right. The circle is going to be open. When we have less than, it's going to be to the left. And we're going to have also an open circle. Greater than or equal to, it's still going to go to the right. But here we're going to have a closed circle. And then for a less than or equal to, it's going to go to the left. But here also we're going to have a closed circle. And all your key phrases, you can refer back to lesson before this, lesson 8, for your key phrases on greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than and equal to. I'll put a card up so you guys can refer back to or lesson 8 on inequalities and the different phrases. So let's try some practice problems. So remember, we want to write, solve, and graph the inequality. So the IS 73 Drama Club needs your 2,455 for costumes. They have already 575. You need to know for each 50 members how much they can raise. So we have the total. We have what we started with. And we have the total number of members. So this has to be greater than or equal to. So that's how much we need. If we have this and we start with 50, we have to figure out how much each of them are going to raise. So we'll have M for money, how much each member made. M. There we go. Raises. Okay, and then from this point, we can actually start to solve. And remember, our inequality stays the same, the symbol. So we get 37.6, which really means each member has to raise more than or equal to $37.60. We need to graph this. So I'm going to write 37.6, or I can even just do 37 and do 38. All right, so, I skipped. There we go. So my point would be probably, if this is halfway, probably here. And it would be a closed circle. And then since it had to be more than that, it's going to go to your right. And that's what my inequality graph would look like. All right, so for number 2, we're going to set up the inequality, and then you're going to graph it yourself. So we have $360 in the bank. Sal has. He withdraws $28 each week. You're going to write and solve and graph the inequality to show how many weeks it would take him to have at most 24. So at most, it can't be more than that. So it has to be less than. So you have 360. We're going to be subtracting $28 per week. W is number of weeks. We're going to solve because that's how we are going to be able to write our inequality. All right, and then something happens when you divide by a negative. So when you divide by a negative, your inequality is going to do something special. So here we have W is going to be negative 336 divided by negative 28 is going to get positive 12. If we started with a less than or equal to, that means your symbol when you divide by negative is going to flip and you're going to have greater than or equal to. So that is the big thing. When you divide, you flip the sign. So it's dividing or multiplying, I should say. So if you're multiplying a negative or you're dividing a negative when you have a coefficient that's negative, you're going to flip your sign. Okay, so here we're going to now, you're going to pause the video, you're going to graph it yourself, and then come back and check. Okay, so here we have the answer, which is 12. So I'm going to write 12. All right, so I have a point, it's a closed circle on 12. And then my arrow is going to go to the right. And that is my graphed inequality. All right, so number 3, you want to determine if m equals 6, 7, and 8 are a solution. So pause the video, try this on your own, and come back and check your answer. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is set up our equation. We're given that the taxi company charges $4.50 per mile plus the $2.75 fee, $2.75 fee. You want to find out how many miles can you travel if you have $35 to spend. And we have to check to see if 6, 7, and 8 miles would be a possible solution. So we have $4.50 per mile. I'm just going to give it M for miles, plus your $2.75. That has to be less than or equal to $35. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract $2.75 from both sides. We're just solving this like a normal equation and isolating our variable. So you have $4.50 M is less than or equal to, we have $32.25. Then we want to divide both sides by 450. You're going to get M is going to be less than or equal to 7.16 repeating. Or if you convert it into a fraction, it's going to be 7 1/6. Now that's what we're going to be actually graphing. In our minds, we know that it has to be, the number of miles has to be less than 7 1/6 of a mile, but we do have to represent that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to represent it as a fraction. To me, that's simpler. So I decrease by ones. I want to make sure that my point is closed on 7 1/6. And because it is less than or equal to, I'm going to move my arrow to the left. Okay, so that is how I'm going to graph my inequality. And then to answer the question, whether or not m equals 6, m equals 7, or m equals 8 is a solution, there's only 2 out of 3. Because if you think about 8 would be around here, 7 would be around here, and 6 would be around here. So the only 2 that would satisfy the solution or be within the solution is m equals 6 and m equals 7 only. And that's it. Make sure you identify your keyword or phrase in the lesson. Make sure you're writing down any questions you have for me. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.